Hey everyone, welcome back. I've got a terrifying build for you today. That thumbnail and video title, Infinite Dip Gas Surge. You think this is a Breach Surge build where we kill stuff with gas weapons? Yes, that works. But no, that's not what we got today. Today, we have an infinite scaling build. This isn't a Breach Surge build for gas. This is a Gas Breach Surge build. Breach Surge itself is doing gas damage. And do you know what this means? The gas procs trigger itself. This Breach Surge scales up damage the longer it lasts, and the gas procs it deals scales with what triggers it, which could be itself, weapons, or even other abilities. And it's even fueled by Roar, which double dips the gas procs back into itself ad infinitum, hence Infinite Dip. Hell, you could even shoot soul gates into them, and they would still die, though I wouldn't recommend it. We got two ways to set this up today, but the important thing is you need tons and tons of kills to keep it up consistently, which this build should have no problem doing, of course, because killing is what it is good at. The KPS is so high, you actually gain life support insanely faster than it drains. We tested this live on stream last night with life support dropping to 40%, and we made it back up to 90% within a minute or two. What's the culprit today? Kit guns. We want some epic, dangerous kit guns. In fact, we want two of them. The magic actually happens with the kit gun arcanes. We're playing with residual arcanes today. These dropped with Deimos Arcana, the second Deimos update during March earlier this year to little fanfare. Now, these arcanes are actually pretty niche, and there aren't that many builds in circulation that use them, but when they work, oh boy, do they work. Today, I'm going to show you both gas and electric Breach Surge setups, as well as base steel path setups and something for the endurance route. These arcanes trigger on kit gun kills, which means dots work. This is important because raw damage falls off in endurance, but let's go over the mechanics of these arcane interactions. The kit gun arcane is the first half. When you kill an enemy with a kit gun equipped with residual arcanes, there is a 20% chance for it to produce an aura underneath where the body ended up. These auras are roughly 10 meters wide, but it seems to get the effects you need to be closer to the center. The aura damages all enemies within its radius, but more importantly, if you stand inside of it, you can get buffs that apply to Theorem arcanes. Residual arcanes by themselves do nothing for your weapons and loadout, but this is why I said residuals are the first half. Next we got Theorem arcanes. These are arcanes for your Warframe, and they only take effect by standing in the auras produced by residuals. Theorem arcanes will gain stacks or effects that can do a number of things. For example, Theorem Contagion will produce globes that orbit you by standing in residual auras. These effects carry over even when you leave the zone. These globes can target enemies and increase damage vulnerability to a specific type. Which type? Well, this is the awesome thing about residual arcanes on your kit guns. There are 4 residual arcanes, one for each primary element, and the one you pick for your kit gun determines what element your Theorem arcane inherits for its effects. So a heat residual would make Theorem Contagion create orbiting globes that will attack enemies and increase their vulnerability to heat damage by 200%. If it was electric, it would increase vulnerability to electric by 200%, and so on and so forth. Theorem Infection, on the other hand, imbues and buffs companions or summoned allies with the chosen elements, gaining 1 stack with global effect for each second you remain standing in the residual aura. This caps out at 15 stacks for a 360% elemental bonus, and stacks last 20 seconds after leaving the zone. Just be aware all stacks expire at once if the timer runs out. This is perfect for a Necro Shield of Shadows or Revenant's Thrall builds, but the one we're interested in today is Theorem Demulgent. This is an arcane that buffs weapon damage by 12% per second you stand in the residual or up to a 15 stack for a 180% elemental bonus. Theorem Infection. It also lasts 20 seconds after leaving the zone and expires all at once if the timer runs out. What some of you may know is that Breach Surge projectiles are treated as weapon damage, meaning it is affected by Arcane Arachne, Vigor Swap, etc. But this also means they're affected by Theorem arcanes. Up to now, this is the only reliable way to get elements onto Breach Surge, but this is extremely important because we know elemental buffs are multiplicative to base damage buffs. So while you could use Arcane Arachne, Vigorous Swap already buffs Breach Surge damage the same way, but say if you imbue Breach Surge with an element, it will be multiplied by Vigorous Swap. This results in bigger damage for Breach Surge. But another thing, Breach Surge procs from all damage sources, including itself, so if you imbue Breach Surge with an element that can do dots, it can scale back into itself. For the biggest scaling, our choices are once again electric and gas, because they scale with the amount of enemies affected. How do we get gas? By running 2 kit guns for 2 residuals. One kit gun with a heat residual and the other with a toxin residual. Standing in both of these auras will instantly imbue your Breach Surge with both heat and toxin to combine into gas. Just remember, you need to be slotting Theorem Demulgent on your frame for this to work. For electric, you only need 1 kit gun with an electric residual. Why would you want to pick between electric or gas? Because electric scales with 120% Demulgent Arcane Elemental bonus, meaning it has a higher damage ceiling immediately than gas, which does not scale with elements. It also only requires 1 kit gun. But electric procs fade with enemies being killed off and do not persist in the crowd, meaning as more enemies die, there are less procs in the group left to fuel Breach Surge, so eventually you will reach a ceiling. But gas lingers. So even after enemies start dying, the damage will continue to ramp up ever further from the lingering procs that continues to trigger even more Breach Surge particles. Basically, while electric has initially higher chain damage and gas, there's a limit to how fast Breach Surge damage can grow before it slows down with electric. Gas continues to rise faster and faster with bigger damage jumps and even more procs from the lingering crowds. Also, as soon as a gas Breach Surge particle lands a headshot, damage shoots up exponentially and everything will instantly die. You can build for whatever you like, but gas generally kills faster in endurance level cap, whereas electric may handle better on base steel path. Gas also requires 2 kit guns, so it's harder to build a scaling secondary as Hunter Munitions does not exist for pistols, but a scaling viral heat build is still possible. So now that we understand how this works, let's look at the kit gun builds. Let's grab the primary setup first. You can use whatever you want, but I have a preference for Gaze. This is a stock corrosive Gaze build for raw damage. This is the build to take if you aren't running endurance level cap. You actually want 90 elementals for electric and toxin here, but I just don't have the right polarities. You'll soon see it doesn't really matter though. It will completely trash base level SP, but if you're facing Corpus, then just run pure toxin instead. You can put Hammershot instead of the electric mod for that. Galvanize Aptitude, because even at just 2 elemental procs from a beam, that's still basically identical to Serration. But you'll also be getting the 80% extra status for corrosive procs. Primed Bane is still useful here, but it is a raw damage build, so it will not necessarily double dip. You could instead use Hammershot or bladed rounds if that's already on the build. I would recommend using Tactical Reload for the Exilus, especially if you're going to use Gas Breach Surge instead of Electric, which requires you to use both kit guns regardless. If you run 2 synth mods on your companion, you will get 40% holster reload per second when combined with Tactical Reload, meaning not using your gun for 2.5 seconds will fully reload it. We are taking Primary Deadhead because it lasts the longest at 24 seconds per stack and only needs 3 headshot kills to max it out for 360% base damage. This should be easy to reach with a raw damage crit corrosive build on a Gaze. Our residual arcane for Gaze primary is Viremia. This is the Toxin Pool variant. You could also run Heat instead if you want with Boils, so long as your pistol kit gun has the complementing element to make gas. If you're going for pure electric only in Breach Surge, then you take Residual Shock instead. Now if you want to use this Gaze for endurance, well then I would recommend dropping High Voltage for the 6060 cold mod. You'll also be dropping Galvanize Aptitude for Hunter Munitions. The Primary Bane will also now double dip on the build. We'd also drop Primary Deadhead for Primary Merciless because we're now using dots to kill instead of raw damage. That's all you need to change. Prime Shred is essential on single target weapons in general because it's what allows you to sweep through crowds for more DPS. But this is also super important in our build because it also lets us trigger more Breach Surge procs in the crowd for gas. So how about our kit gun pistol? Well, remember this only applies if you're using the Gas Surge setup. If you're using Electric Surge, you can run whatever pistol you want. I once again chose a Gaze kit gun, except as a pistol. This thing slightly out DPSs the primary variant for raw damage. We're going for a corrosive build here with literally identical mods. 90 mods for corrosive, both galvanized mods, which is actually slightly strong in the pistol since we get puncture procs as well for 360% base damage scaling instead of just 2 status effects for 240%, which would barely match Hornet Strike. The Prime Bane is still there and we got Seeker for punch through. There is no bonus fire rate on this build, but the weapon actually already has pretty solid fire rate. We got Secondary Deadhead here since it's once again a raw damage headshot kill build on corrosive. 24 seconds per stack and you only need 3 stacks, which should be easy, as well as a 30% headshot multiplier. The residual is Boils, which is the heat variant to make gas. You could run Viremia instead so long as your primary and secondary residuals combine to make gas. If you're going for pure electric only on Breach Surge and DPSing with a secondary kit gun instead of a primary, then take Residual Shock. I would once again recommend running the Holster Reload Eject Magazine mod here, especially because the only reason you'd be running a kit gun pistol is really for Gas Surge unless you for some reason want to run Electric Surge with a pistol build instead of a primary. Pistols do have better mods, but they have generally better stat sticks and primers as well. Primaries also have access to 100 munitions for infinite scaling, so the loadout potential on a primary kit gun for electric surge is better than just a secondary kit gun which must resort to viral heat. If you want an endurance pistol gaze, well, you're a bit short of luck. We don't have a pistol equivalent to 100 munitions, but you can run viral heat like I said. You would essentially replace these two 90 corrosive mods with a 60-60 cold and toxin for viral. Because of all the status effects on the pistol version and heat not bypassing armor, you can either drop Seeker or Galvanized Shot for prime heated charge. Dropping Seeker for prime heated charge significantly improves your single target damage, but guts your crowd killing capability in Steel Path. On the other hand, dropping Galvanized Shot preserves your crowd sweeping potential, but you won't get the Galvanized Shot scaling of puncture, radiation, viral, and heat for 480% base damage. It's up to you. You also want to drop secondary Deadhead for secondary Merciless if you do this, since you're no longer getting headshot kills with raw damage. The melee is another token setup. I guess I'm bringing a Vasalok to armor strip the Acolyte if they decide to hang out away from the front, so I can kill them with raw DBS from the viral heat if they don't want to get closer and sucked up in the gas surge. Fun, but feel free to bring whatever you want. The only important parts on this armor strip build is the attack speed and shattering impact. All the other mods are here to taste. Now, I've hyped it all up until now. How about we look at that Wisp build? This aura should be growing power or brief respite. I just have screwy polarities and I can't fix it because my other configs are at 0 capacity remaining. Also, I wasn't going to build a third Wisp just for this video, but just keep that in mind. With brief respite, any ability cast will fully regenerate your shields. With the Augur Reach, you would have to cast any ability twice or roar once if it isn't already active. Now, here's one thing you may not know about Wisp. I haven't slotted Rolling Guard on her because she has it built into her 2. Her 2? It gives you 3 seconds invulnerability whenever it ends, so if you want Rolling Guard, just double tap your 2 instantly to cast and end it. Voila, 3 seconds of invulnerability. You get this no matter how late you uncast your 2, and it's also spammable and even regenerates your shield since it's an ability cast. Not only does she have invisibility whenever she jumps, which we'll be doing quite a bit, but she even has Rolling Guard and Shield Gate regeneration all rolled into one ability, with no cooldown. How's that for OP? Besides this, all she is missing is anti-knock, which is why we're slotting Prime sure-footed. Breach Surge requires line of sight, and we want to be able to pull in tons of enemies in open space tile, so I've built for a sizable amount of range using Stretch and Augur Reach for 175 range. This grants Breach Surge a 31.5 meter radius. We also slot Prime Continuity for some ability duration to make Roar last longer. This is honestly probably the strongest Wisp build I have ever created. I know this is overkill, but sometimes you just want the ridiculous overpowered builds you can make, and this is it for me. 155 duration makes Roar last 46.5 seconds, but also extends the Breach Surge blind to 25 seconds. It also extends the effect of your motes to 46.5 seconds. Shock motes prevent things near it attacking you. Health motes give you a nice dose of extra max HP and health regen. Haste motes give you that needed fire rate for your kit guns. Quite a comfy build. For strength, I've opted for Umbral Intensify and Blind Rage. This is important because Roar acts as a universal bane for a gas surge, meaning it will double dip the Breach Surge damage and resulting gas proc dots, which funnels back into itself, etc., as each dot proc can trigger another particle. Technically, doesn't this mean it's an infinite dip loop? This is why it's literally the strongest build I've ever made. Forget triple dip, forget quad dip, how about infinite dip? Strength is also important because not only does it affect the damage multiplier Breach Surge sparks, it also affects the status chance for the projectile. So we have 48% chance of inflicting gas every single time a spark strikes an enemy. How's that for science? We got 45 efficiency, but this energy economy is easily managed by Arcane Energize. Your 3 and 2 can get a bit spammy in longer runs, so I've also accompanied this with Equilibrium and Prime Flow to take advantage of even more energy from our companion. Keep in mind this should be a max rank Equilibrium if you don't have messed up polarities like me. Also Brief Respite or Growing Power Zora instead. For the pet, you guessed it, we're running a Panzer Volpaphyla. The only thing this build is missing is Viral. It doesn't even need it, but that's literally the only thing you could still add to boost the damage further. But the real reason is Viral Coils count as pet assists. Pet assists affect Synth Deconstruct, which means every enemy tagged with a Quill Spore has a 25% chance to drop a health orb when killed, and will be able to pick up health orbs even at full HP because of Synth Fiber. The double Synth set will also stack with the Weapon Excellence mod, so holster reload your kick guns at 40% of magazine per second. Finally, Martyr will cover your ass if you screw up by preventing you from dying, while Panzer Devolution makes your pet have infinite lives. The Tech Assault also reduces the chance of your Panzer getting one-clapped. The rest of the mods are just utility. Link mods for base Steel Path, which are useless endurance, Radar to know spawn density locations to know where to go, and Fetch for, well, vacuuming energy orbs and health orbs. We're also pulling enemies together to maximize the spore spread. How are we achieving this? Enter your operator. We're taking Zeneric to aid our energy economy and further with energizing dash, but this also means we have operator arcanes. Which ones? Magus Anomaly, which drags everything within 30 meters to you. The pull isn't too strong, but spamming your 5 say 3 times or so is enough to pull literally everything to the middle. The second arcane is up to you. It could be Magus Elevate, which heals you on transference while spamming Anomaly, but Wisp already has health mode, so I've opted for Magus Lockdown. If I need to dash somewhere with my operator, I can guarantee my operator won't be killed at the destination as I unvoid since everything will be locked down. And that's it. Probably the most OP build I have ever made. Doesn't nuke entire tiles instantly as it takes time to drag everything to the middle. It's a little bit of extra work, but it has infinite scaling, ridiculous amounts of firepower, is incredibly fun to use, and really hard to die. I'll be leaving you with the rest of the Steel Path footage. This is a little bit of a more interactive Wisp build, but it just so far outpaces life support drain that you can do whatever you want, and this is what makes it fun in my opinion. Every action you make, every bullet you fire, adds fuel into the Inferno to tear everything down. You aren't going through rotations to make the build functional. You're going through the motions to bring about the end of their world with one blinding maelstrom of instant death gas nukes at a time. The Infinite Dip Gas Surge Wisp. Enjoy! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible, like I've done with covering the Sisters Parvels and Plague Star updates. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. I'm also preparing to get you the info first once more new war info drops. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.